Stephen, thank you for that, and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Over the next 20 minutes, and I do realise I am between you and probably a much-wanted coffee, so I will keep it to that. I just wanted to share some kind of tips, some hints that come out of the results from some initiatives that publishers have undertaken with Kindle and appear to be very successful at driving ebook sales. I'm going to be using data from both the US and the UK. Part of the reason is we simply do not have a long enough run of UK data to be able to cover some of the examples that I want to give. But for me, what's important is where we do have both US and UK data, they are incredibly aligned. So I'm pretty comfortable that anything I show you from the US is at least directionally true for what's going to happen in the UK. Some of you know I moved across from the physical book side to the Kindle side in about May last year, just before we launched our store in August in the UK. And what has staggered me over that period is that I think the transition to digital is happening a lot faster than I thought it would, and I think a lot faster than many of us in the industry thought it would. I've taken some quotes just from the beginning of this year, and it aligns very much with what some of the other speakers have said. These obviously are particularly pertinent quotes, but what I like about them is they are in the public domain. They are publishers mainly talking about how or digital has impacted their results in 2010. And while I clearly picked particularly pertinent quotes, it seems to me this is entirely in line with A, what some other speakers said, but B, what's coming out of the research. And I noticed BML recently said that a third of academic publishers think that 10% of their revenues in 2011 will be E, and that about 25% of trade publishers think that 10% of their revenues will be E in 2012. Looking at the absolutely staggering figures here from some publishers, I actually wonder if those trade publishers are being a little conservative about where we're going to end up in digital this year. Certainly, looking at what's happening with us, I think there's a potential to perform better than that. So, where are we with Kindle today? Well, Kindle is a device, either free 3G and Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi. And as importantly, it's the Kindle apps. And those apps absolutely are how we bring to life our commitment to our readers, our customers, that they can buy a book once and read it on any device they want to. And so we obviously have for PC, for Mac, for iPhone, Android, and most recently, Windows 7. We launched a dedicated UK store and device in the UK in August last year, only 8 months ago, and its performance on both device and books has exceeded our expectations significantly. And it's because of that that the latest Kindle is now the best-selling product. It has the highest 5-star reviews on Amazon at all, and it also has actually outsold Harry Potter 7, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which is just an amazing statistic. 8 months in, we've sold more than Harry Potter 7. Most importantly for us as an industry, it seems that Kindle owners, people who buy Kindle books, are avid readers. This data is looking at a cohort of people or cohorts of people and what their purchasing behavior was 12 months before they bought a Kindle, so how many physical books did they buy in the 12 months before they bought a Kindle, and what their purchasing behavior has been like 12 months after. And what we see is that if they bought 10 books, 10 physical books before they owned a Kindle, after they own a Kindle, in the 12 months after, they're buying 33 physical and digital books, which is a huge increase and shows some real opportunity. And for those of you who've got more longevity than me here, you'll remember we first came out with this statistic in 2009, and in 2009 it was 3.1. So the trend seems to be moving absolutely in the right way. In July last year, and this is US data, in July last year we announced that Kindle books in the US were selling more than hardbacks. And when we announced our end-of-year results in the first quarter in January this year, we announced actually that in the last quarter of 2010, Kindle books were outselling paperbacks. And in itself, that's a great statistic, but that's on the back of a physical book business that is still very healthy and still growing in double digits. So this is a very, very swift transition to what's going on. And if those bits of data from the publishers, certainly what Evan's been saying, what others have been saying, aren't enough, and this from us, I thought I'd share a couple of bits of US data again, and we simply need it because we don't have enough data in the UK here on the opportunities that are out there. This is data that refers to The Help by Catherine Stockett. Great book, just finished reading it myself. And what you've got here is the blue line, or the blue bar, sorry, is total book scan sales. So total book scan sales. The yellow bit above that is Kindle ebook sales, and the green line is the ratio of the two. So what we see is that way back in 2009, early 2009, when there's far fewer Kindles out in the marketplace, Kindle readers had really engaged with this book and were perhaps 35% of sales. Later that year, in July, USA Today started including ebook sales in their bestseller lists, and this had an immediate impact on books like The Help, and it moved up 35 places in their listings. The following week, our physical book sales were significantly up, as were BookScan. This trend continued, and what's interesting is that the Kindle sales continued 20-25% of total BookScan sales. What I think is really interesting, though, is as we come towards the end of the year, yes, you get the spike at Christmas, which we'd all expect, but perhaps as importantly, perhaps as physical inventory starts to deplete out of the shops in January, there's another upstep in Kindle book sales, and we're now looking at, I guess, 50 to 70%, and that's holding through to March. So for me, what's very clear from this is, this is the beginning of a cycle, and how ebooks can help you through the whole cycle to maximize the opportunities through the whole cycle of a book. Let me give another example. Room by Emma Donoghue. This was a book our editors, our merchandising people in the US absolutely fell in love with. It was an Amazon Vine feature back in July. And then in September, our merchandising and editorial people in the US picked it as one of their editors' choices. In the 4 weeks after it was picked, which is the period this data covers, Kindle sales were 70% of BookScan sales. And again, for me, the second part is you get the Christmas spike, and then perhaps, again, as stocks are depleting out, Kindle sales are now a very, very significant part ongoing. In fact, we're probably selling, from the look of it, about 12 Kindle books for every 10 physical books that we sell. And for me, these two are real examples of the huge growth opportunities, the incremental growth opportunities that are available here to this industry. Perhaps now I can turn to some of the growth strategies that people have been following and growth opportunities. The first one I'd like to turn to is pre-orders. Now, in physical books, pre-orders and the benefit of them are absolutely uncontroversial. And this data here from the UK shows exactly why. This looks at Amazon UK's total print book sales over a 12-week period, and it's 6 weeks before the publication date and 6 weeks after the publication date. And what we see is that 27%, almost 27% of sales are made before publication date. And this is going to hold true for digital, for Kindle books as well. To make that happen, we need the file, we need the metadata at least 6 weeks before publication date. And I completely understand we are all suffering and grappling with what are euphemistically called legacy systems. But surely, if anything, this is a very good argument that investment in those legacy systems and aligning them with what is needed to maximize the digital book opportunity is going to be worthwhile. Let me move to some other examples, this time about how front list can really drive your backlist. So, Joe Nesbo, what you're going to see over the next 2 or 3 charts is these light blue bars are showing the ratio of Kindle sales to Amazon physical book sales. So slightly different data from we presented in the US, but we have shorter data run series. So what this is showing is that we were selling on average, say, about 6 to 7 Kindle copies for every 10 physical copies of the entire backlist. The Leopard then launches, and again, we have great Kindle engagement. It's done really, really well as a physical book, and we're still selling about 6 Kindle copies for every 10 digital copies. But look what happens to the backlist. We have a significant uptick in the backlist, and we move to, on average, much greater than 6 Kindle copies for every 10, and for the Snowman, we're looking at 12 Kindle copies for every 10 physical book copies after launch. To me, it's absolutely clear you need to be digitizing your backlist, and especially so for authors. Let's give another example. This time, Simon Koenig, Payback. Same format. These light blue bars are showing Kindle ebook sales versus physical book sales. And this time, there's, he's very popular on Kindle, so there's a kind of 1-to-1 ratio. Payback launches. Again, very good sales, 1-to-1 ratio. Look what's happened to the backlist. Again, very, very solid uplifts, pretty much across the board. And then in the deep backness, the business of dying, something that was out 9 years ago. I'm not sure how many physical copies are still around in bookshops. You've got 45 Kindle copies being sold for every 10 physical copies. Absolutely staggering uplift. Finally, let me turn to, and I'm not going to make you go through all 3 slides again, you kind of know the format now, James Patterson's TikTok. So TikTok launched, you can see, again, a significant uplift, but this time, step on the crack. And I understand there's really complex rights issues here, but what a missed opportunity. And it would seem to me the data in these slides and the 2 earlier ones should surely be persuasive to the authors, the agents, and the publishers that there's a huge missed opportunity out there. Would it have been 20 Kindle books, 30 Kindle books, or 40 Kindle books for every 10 physical books had we had Step on a Crack available? So for me, really, really clear lesson from these slides that we need to digitize backlist, and absolutely for series authors, it's vital that the whole backlist is digitized before you bring out a new frontlist title. Let me now move on to promotions. Now I'm going to use an example from a smaller publisher here. This is a series, Ivy Malone series by Baker Publishing. It's a kind of mystery series, and to be honest, it didn't have huge sales in physical copies, as you'll see. It's a 4-book series brought out between 2004 and 2006, and being honest, there were very modest sales physically. However, in January of this year, the publisher decided to relaunch and re-energize and revitalize this. They rejacketed the range so that there was a clear consistency, a clear signal to the customer, hey, there's 4 here in this series. And they decided on to try something interesting promotionally, and they decided to offer the first Invisible as a free Kindle book and sell the other 3. And digital sales increased very, very significantly. Let me share some of the data with you. So what this chart shows is the physical sales are the blue line, and as you can see, 28 print books over nearly 6 years across 4 is modest. But then we launched promotion. The promotion started in January, so 24th of January for 2 months. During that period, 31,000 people downloaded the free Kindle book. During that period, nearly 1,400 Kindle books were bought at just under £5. Effectively, that means nearly 50 times as many books were bought, ebooks, Kindle books, were bought in a 2-month period as had been bought in nearly 6 years on the physical side. And this played through very well across all aspects. It played through to revenue, where revenue was 26 times more than had been earned in the previous 6 years. For us, there were kind of 3 really clear learnings. 32,000 people, nearly 31,000, sorry, were introduced to this series and this author. Huge sales, nearly 50 times more sales in Kindle in 2 months than in 6 years, and 26 times revenue. This was a very, very successful promotion. Let me be clear, what I'm not saying is that you can do this with anything. Content is still clearly crucial. Content is still clearly king, and you need a great book for something or a series of books to make this happen. But and I'm not saying either that there's one particular type of promotional mechanic What I am saying is this is a very new area. People are interacting with digital books differently, and it gives us a great opportunity to innovate and try new things. And I think this is a fantastic example of how that can be successful. Let me move on to a final topic, and a topic that you wouldn't expect Amazon not to touch on: pricing. I realize there has been a lot written about this, and it's in some ways controversial, but certainly a very complex area. And what I don't want to do is spend the next 5 minutes, going over, is there one particular business model which is better than another, or going over Amazon's position on this. Everyone knows that. What I do think is worthwhile, and what we're noticing, is the observation that pricing operates differently and affects customers at different times in the digital environment than it does in the physical environment. Let me bring it to life. If you're in a bookshop, you've decided what form of entertainment you want. You've gone in, you're in a closed environment. And therefore, once you've made that decision, what's important to us as books retailers is that for you, the customer, everything we do in terms of price, in terms of marketing, in terms of any other associated material is consistent and coherent, so it makes your shopping experience an enjoyable one. It is fundamentally different in the digital space. Let me bring it to life. You're at home, it's Friday, and you've got 2 hours. You've got a blessed 2 hours to yourself. What are you going to do with it? You're sitting on your sofa, you're surfing, and you're deciding, what do I want to do for the next 2 hours? Well, you could decide to download The Guardian and have it for free and read that for 2 hours. Alternatively, for 59p, you can play Angry Birds for 2 hours. There's an album under £5, there's a film under £5, and I notice if we'd been to Blinkbox, it'd have been £2.99, not £3.49, so this is slightly out of date. But the point is, people are shopping in a completely different environment, and it's too simplistic for us to think the whole pricing debate needs to be about what's the price of the digital versus the physical. It's not that for people in the digital environment. It's what are there other opportunities for them in that environment, and how are they going to interact? So I think pricing operates very, very differently and needs to be treated very differently. So let me sum up and let everyone get some well-deserved coffee. First is kind of add backlist, especially important for series authors and especially important for out of print. Let's build a complete sales cycle together. The digital can really help at the beginning of a book's life cycle, and the evidence seems to suggest it can really maintain sales and harvest more sales towards the end of a book's life cycle as we're thinking about how we manage out and optimize physical inventory. Help us to grow some underrepresented categories. We really owe our customers, our readers, a better selection in cookery books, in children's books, in comics, and in home and garden. And we'd really like to work with you on improving that. As I've just said, look, pricing, I think, is absolutely fundamental, but not in this simplistic dimension of is it physical versus digital. It's digital versus all the other options people who are sitting on the sofa and surfing have. And then finally, this is a new market. It seems to me it's evolving incredibly quickly, and people are behaving very differently within it. And it gives us a great opportunity to do innovative things, to try new things, to see how people react to new ideas. And that kind of reminds me of a quote that Jeff Bezos used when he was starting Amazon up. And he was trying to say, there's a whole new future out there, and we need to react with it differently. And this was in an advert when he was trying to recruit a software engineer. There's a quote from Alan Kay, which is, it's kind of easier to invent the future than predict it. And we certainly would like to work with everyone here on helping us to invent a very profitable future and a very successful future as we move from physical to digital. And as one of the bigger physical books retailers, we have an absolute aligned interest with most people in this room that we make that transition successfully. And actually, we owe a successful transition of that to the two most important people within this industry. On the one hand, our authors, our content creators, and on the other hand, our readers, our customers. And we need to do that together by following some of these tips. Thank you very much.